Hey everybody, welcome back to another replay cast. We're gonna take a look at game 2 of Krot versus General Boulanger of the third Black tournament. This should be the semifinals. And here we have Krot's deck, who is playing Eurocore. Eurocore got hit quite significantly, I would say. The Tiger costs 20 points more. Of course, let me repeat this in case you haven't watched previous videos. This tournament is playing with a mod that implements all the known upcoming changes to Wargame Dragon coming with South Africa DLC, excluding South Africa itself, but of course the changes that affect other nations, such as the Tiger being more expensive, 20 points, MX10 being more expensive, 10 additional points. You only get one card of the Peace Shrines. And I think that's all the changes that affect the units of this specific deck. Oh yeah, and the mortar here is 5 points more expensive. LRM removed from mech, but it doesn't affect Eurocore unspec, of course. Relatively interesting deck, I would say. French Reservistes in Eurocore, not rare, but using them on top of the German Heimatschützen, I don't remember the last time I've seen someone do that in Eurocore unspec, if anytime at all. So that is interesting. Panzergrens 90 in the Mother 1. Not incredibly rare, but not taking the Mother 2, especially with the nerfed MX10. Interesting. Crotals, Rolands. Everything else, honestly, is fairly standard. Lots of ASFs, presumably to protect the Leclercs against anti-tanks planes. And I just remembered, yep, Leclerc is also only 2 per card now. But yeah, infantry tab, quite exotic, I would say. The rest, not so crazy. The 2 vehicles are interesting. Personally, I probably would have used another card of helicopters. Tiger Head or Heb, especially given that the Recon Tiger is nerfed. I would probably make more use of either of these, or maybe even both of these versions. Especially the Heb, honestly, I think is probably the stronger of the 2 Tigers of the helicopter tag. But yeah, let's take a look at Boulanger's deck. And Boulanger is playing Soviets. Now, I haven't seen him play a lot of Soviets, but from what little I've seen, I don't know, he doesn't seem like this deck. I feel like this deck doesn't suit him that well. To really get the most out of Soviets, you have to play what a good amount of people would consider, let's say cancerous, not like cheesy, like not like exploiting, like heal rushes, but fairly cancerous, kind of cheesy in a way. Which doesn't mean they have good normal units, but I feel like I'm not the best Soviet player myself, but I don't know. It's just whenever I've seen him play this, which again, not a lot, but what little I've seen, I don't know. He doesn't seem to do too well with it, but he knows that better than me, given that he's playing it. And of course, Soviets is still very much a strong deck, and with this mod, has been pretty much unaffected, with the exception of basic Gonna Strike, I believe. Which of course means no buffs, but on the other hand, all the other strong decks basically have been nerfed, right? So comparatively speaking, it got stronger. Even though virtually none of the units got touched. That said, nothing really too crazy in the infantry tab. Igla, you don't see that much these days. You used to see it for a while, but nowadays you don't see it that often anymore. Still though, especially with the Scratch Head, very strong combination. Modus Dragon in the 5-pointer is your meat shield. It's not a good meat shield, but it's the best meat shield you get in terms of infantry. VDV90, Hyperion, BTRT, standard anti-air. I think given that you have Igla for short range AA and all the Scratch Heads, I think taking the Book M1 would be a better combination instead of the OSA AKM. That way, the Book M1 deals the 9 damage, and the Scratch Heads that you have all over the map will deal that extra 1 damage to finish off a plane. And then maybe combined with that, I would maybe take the basic OSA for like wheeled anti-helo openers, something like that. OSA AKs and AKMs are fine, but I don't think they synergize with each other particularly well. And they also don't synergize with the Scratch Heads that are one of the key parts of Soviets particularly well. That said, they're still fine AA pieces, right? Eurogun, Potnos, Tank Tab is fairly standard. No T-72A, but it's usually when you build Soviets for 1 versus 1s, it's either taking the T-72A or the T-80. They fill slightly different roles, but fitting in both at the same time is still kind of difficult. BTR-90s with the Cruise, Razzmann with for cheap MTVs, K-52 BMPT, 24 VP, 27 PU, Yak-141, SU-27M, SU-25T standard, MiG-21 BIS for the rocket pod plane. Surprised to not see any seat to protect the 25T against a radar AA better. Then again, the Rolands somewhat struggle against 2 armor planes due to firing only 2 missiles before having to reload and having only 6 HE. You need essentially 25 HE worth of damage to kill a 25T, assuming you always hit the 2 armor parts, and 4 Roland missiles lead to 24 HE. So yeah, it's not Eurocorps somewhat struggles with dealing with 2 armor planes, not as much as something like Commonwealth though. But yeah, nothing too crazy in the deck. It's the AA that personally I don't like, but you know, I guess we'll see how it plays out. And we're gonna play on Battlefield, a map that I would consider to be pretty good for Soviets. Lots of open field, especially in this area, so you can make a lot of use out of your 25T if you are the player that likes to really use that plane a lot. That said, I would definitely say that, well, first of all, personally, I virtually always prefer the Echo side. I can understand it if you're playing a mech deck or something that plays like a mech deck or very, very infantry heavy. You might prefer Delta so you can do the Bravo push. I've warmed up to this, but outside of that, with like quote-unquote normal decks, unspec decks, and most notably something like US or Soviets, I definitely think that the Echo spawn is better, because if you take the fight to Foxtrot, then all the reinforcements have to cross all this open field, right? And that's a dream for air-heavy decks like Soviets and the US. And if it comes down to a brawl here, Soviets and the US do well here, but especially I think if you come from this side, because you rely on a lot on vehicles, right? BTRTs, M1 Abramses, CSs, stuff like that for forest grinds. So not having to go down with your heavy expensive vehicles down a narrow path either here or there means it's a lot harder for your opponent to like randomly sideshot or like easily deal with them. And of course, given that once again reinforcements, if they could choose this way, cross over the open field, a K-52 parked here or there or something will spot this, and then you can once again really use your air power. But that's all not the case, so my talk was worthless. Just kidding, but like Soviets, of course, or Boulanger starts on the top spawn here. There's still a lot of open field, and you know, there's again a lot of open field for reinforcements, but there's some intermediate cover here or there. And of course, you know, no matter which side, you can always make use of smoke. So let's take a look and see how they plan to go. Seems like around about half an hour worth of a match, so relatively short compared to the previous one. Eurocorps tends to also kind of like the open if you really rely on your peace runs, but of course, and you know, making use of the Tiger, but of course with only 1 card of peace runs, it's a bit nerfed. So medium heavy opener. Some people really like to put their Leclerc or like they're super heavy in this area. Again, personally not a fan, but you have the advantage that should you can kind of both react to push here and there, though it's not ideal for either, but that's the trade-off, right? As opposed to if you focus on here, you can really get screwed up on this side and vice versa. So this is like a compromise. Just a minor one here, but again, should push come here, you can just easily reroute these units there. MX Krot help web and more reservists. I'm really surprised to see him open with the German reservists. I definitely think that the French ones are better. The German ones do carry probably the best anti-tank weapon out of any reservists, but it's still not really good enough to put a proper dent into BMPTs or BTRTs. So I think having a better 5-pointer where it takes longer for autocannons, etc. to kill them, I think might be preferable. And yeah, Boulanger opens up for Bravo, as you can see, 2 BMPTs. They're gonna really shred infantry. One Striker, AA, T-72B, K-52 opener as well to counter the Tiger. And just some holding forces for this town. And I'll be back in 1 second. Why the heck does someone always have to Ring the bell or call me when I'm casting a game. Silence all day, and the moment I start casting, ring, 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 but on a phone. Anyway. Once again, very scuffed cast. Both players starting with only 1 CV. There's a 2-pointer, so getting a second one can put on quite some pressure on your opponent, but of course, if you lose the opener or completely get destroyed there, doesn't always help you. Coming back on this map is a bit difficult, I would say. Especially if you do a push here and you completely lose in the push, you can really be on the back foot. Because once again, reinforcing here can be dangerous. Krot here can really shut down, from either side really, Krot's helicopter play, because again, open field, so not a lot of forest in the way of that anti-air. Interesting Milan 3 placement. Probably meant to be in this town still. Oh, he basically completely gives up Bravo. Now that is interesting. I probably would have preferred to put it here, but then again, typically if you play something here that really just gets oh, there we go. Completely destroyed, and it's hard to really retreat. Despite there being forest, that open gap here really leads to, as soon as there's something serious coming, whatever is in there being dead. Still, I guess like maybe I'm not a fan of leaving it this wide open, but you know, let's see how it goes. Krot generally likes to really, I would say, it seems like he likes to, let's say, gamble with certain strategies, leaving something really wide open and hope that the opponent doesn't exploit it enough. To a certain extent, it kind of bit him in the ass when he just completely ignored one side on Helen in very small place in the last match. Whether that was a big part of why he lost or not is of course up for debate. Krot, or it's just another Krot really for base defense? Interesting. If that's what he's going for. Did he did not side with the mortar, huh? Okay. Not completely necessary. He is in cover or has cover nearby, but now he's quite exposed. Especially with the gurus here. They're just taking this for free, kind of as expected. K29 coming in, Krot should have no problem. Congress M is not gonna be enough to deal with all this. BT90 is amazing against it, but once this gets killed, all these hammers and all these 5-pointers will just completely overwhelm everything's there. LRM even coming in with 1/3 of a salvo. This was a Gazelle cannon, I presume. Yep, Gazelle cannon, you could see the 20 mm autocannon. I presume the fob got spotted, but I guess we'll see if this is getting marked. LRM coming in, yep, fob has been spotted. As I said, Krot quite the fob sniper. We'll see if Boulanger tries to retaliate and snipe the fob in return. But of course, Soviets incredibly dependent on the fob, at least the way it is most commonly played. You know, with the Jurgen, especially if you make also heavy use of rocket pods and helicopters, they are quite supply intensive. K29 sort of dying for nothing. Rocket pods got turned off. Could have at least taken some more Heimatschützen with them. I'm not sure why he turned them off. Maybe it was a micro mistake. Given that it was already kind of aggressive to just place it here, you might as well make use of the rocket pods. Because I think if you place it here, especially against a deck that uses Krotals, and you knew, I think, already there was a Krotal, you kind of expect to lose it anyway, or should at least. But yeah, this is getting completely overwhelmed. And while Boulanger has access to this, he didn't really make a lot of... He didn't get a lot of kills with this, not a lot of points back with this, which you typically try to do. But I think because Krot just parked his stuff here and Boulanger didn't or was too slow to put any pressure onto Charlie, Krot could just take his time to just completely overwhelm with the stuff he has here to get rid of the crew, the Conqueror's M, and whatever little was there, without really taking any losses. And by the time Boulanger is maybe even trying to do anything here, all these forces already dealt with Golf, then he can very easily just reroute to support Bravo. There's a BU coming in. Fob at the moment still alive. LRM already aimed for the fob, but of course takes some time. BT90 driving through. Surprised that the K-52 didn't try to fly around, but maybe he felt he needed the optics to spot what's happening, what is where, and see where he maybe needs to defend. Panther changes altitude, so the OSA AKM doesn't quite manage to connect and only deals splash damage. Heavily damage a Panther, but it's still alive. Oh, it's actually landed even. Hammerschützen, they're not amazing, but should have no problem dealing with the 2 HP Conqueror's M squad. Leclerc. Oh, getting a nasty side shot on the BMPT there. You hate to see it. That was pretty reckless. I think Boulanger either didn't expect Leclerc to already be there or just underestimated the distance. Or maybe just underestimated the time it takes for the BMPT to cross. And now, Boulanger not so great in the position down here anymore. Up here, sure he has a BU, but pushing down here is quite tough. Open field, narrow ways, no cover. You have to push against a town and a bunch of bushes. It's very easy to get your stuff sideshot by infantry sitting in here. Very rough time to attack Golf. And with that over-aggressive BMPTs, plural, getting both lost, I presume the Panzergrenz 90 sideshotted, given that they used one round of their Panzerfaust 3. You're in a very, very bad position. You still have a T-72B, a bit of infantry, but that's not typically how Soviets really hold their forests. You want your Euroguns, you want your BMPTs, your BTRTs. Nothing at the moment in here. There were 2 BMPTs, of course, but they're gone. Those Guru also took a lot of damage. On Panther, maybe? Or MX-10. Milan F3 here could do some nasty damage. Should it be you? Not quite. Retreats just in time. Mortar providing fire support. More Mortar ones with Panzergrenz coming in. Panzergrenz are going to be really useful, just like Legion 90. Because again, BPTs and BTRTs are going to be the main problem here for these fights. And as I say this, there are 2 coming in. I was going to say there are none coming in, but there are some. So he really likes to do that. He really, would like to have those high AT infantry, of course. Both Panzergrenz 90 and Legion 90 needing 2 shots to kill either of these. You need 27 AP heat for killing this and 29 AP heat for one-shotting at T-72B. 90 kills the Weasel. Quite aggressive with the Krot. But thanks to the Weasel taking damage, Krot realizes nope, don't want to be there and drives away. Kasaipi coming in. Maybe to help you with the BTR-90 or just to keep things safe here. BTR-90 down here. Some Mark 2s. They have quite a decent autocannon, but with only 1 armor, of course, die like flies. T-72 BU sitting still just here, keeping things clear. But this is quite an investment, so he should really try to get some value out of it. The Leclerc is getting value, even if it's not quite doing nothing, because Krot, or Boulanger knows there is quite a wall there. There is a super heavy here. That's something he has to deal with one way, or either directly or indirectly. Indirectly meaning, you know, killing all the supporting units to get Golf back. But with all this open field, even without like infantry next to it, or heavy tanks can get quite some value. They are not quite as dependent as they would be in other areas of the map or other areas of other maps, especially as long as this town is, you know, either clear or held by Krot himself. Fob is now dead. That is quite a blow. I guess that's why we never saw a Eurogun, because Boulanger was like, well, he spotted my Fob, there's no point in buying a Eurogun if I can't get a bunch of quote-unquote free salvos out of it. That did cost, you know, Krot a bit of supply and, you know, a bit of his LRM usage that he maybe would have preferred using otherwise. But he's not been too aggressive outside of the open, right? So there were not really any engagements where an LRM would have been amazing to have. Now it would be a good time. As you can see, BTRT took 1 shot of one of the Panzergrenz squad and then just melted it. Grenade launcher is absolutely deadly against infantry. Leclerc being quite aggressive. Any AT plane or a good AT plane, you know, coming in could easily snipe it. But again, Boulanger being on the back foot, I think, or probably considered by many on the back foot at the moment, might not be able to afford this. Either the 25T or the 27M, 200 points worth of investment, especially with no real area support. He does build up some helicopters though, 2 VPs and 2 MTVs. Eurocorps, famously or infamously, not really that great to deal with massed helo rushes. But if you're in a position where you have quite a relatively wide front line and getting attacked over an open field, you can make these Krotals can be quite good as like supporting each other from like the side, while the helicopters are basically shooting in something else, right? Let's assume those helicopters attack Heimatschützen, then they're let me just pause. Then they're looking this way, right? And the main threat of helicopters against AA are the rocket bots. If those helicopters sit here, shoot there this way, then the Krotal from behind can shoot at them, while the rocket bots are out of range, and the Krotals from here can also shoot at them. Alternatively, if the game went differently, and Boulanger did a heavy push here, Krot did a heavy push here, just for the sake of the argument, Boulanger held this, Krot held this, but the main forces were here, then there's really only one narrow, pathway blob where the AA could be. So these helicopters could very easily overwhelm this AA because they're essentially quite directly in front of them. But if they're not, this can happen. Funnily enough, those still spots at Krotal, but the VP misses. And they go down like flies because they went over the open. What you want to do is you want to be visible to the enemy AA in your rocket bot range ideally, or at least in your ATGM range. But they flew over the open, so the Krotal could actually make use out of its range, as well as there being no ground units to keep the Krotal in check. Anti-air units typically have relatively high noise values, so if they fire, they get relatively easily spotted by other ground units. But there were no ground units to really threaten the Krotals, so the Krotals could be directly at the front line versus being behind the front line. However, all those forces, all those pentagrams did get dealt with by Boulanger, so map control wise, it's not looking too bad. Points wise, it is looking bad. He traded 2 MTVs and 2 VPs for a single Krotal. 2 VPs alone are already 180 points, 2 MTVs, that's another 60 points, 240 points for one 60-point unit. That's not worth it. Not unless this is like the only AA unit on the field and then your third VP can suddenly roll over the opponent. Then trades like this can of course be worth it. In this case, obviously not. And there's more Krotals coming. There's so many Krotals on the field. Krot really likes the Krotals, huh? I mean, they have been working really well for him. There's another Tiger that just dealt with some stuff over this end. LRM coming in. Probably just trying to stop the BU, but the BU, again, not really getting a lot of value out of it. It's not really been damaged, but it's still 185 points. Some more lucky shots and a VDV could at least be dead. LRM, I think that's a bit of an... I mean, on the one hand, maybe Krot just thought, I don't have anything to do with this LRM either, so might as well. But personally, maybe like... Oh, he did get a VDV with the last shot. Maybe you shoot like 3 or 4 rounds just to stun and panic and just, stop him in his tracks. But keep some of those LRM shots in the back foot in case, all this shit suddenly rolls over here. Let's not forget, at the moment, he has very little, if any, line of sight over there. There's nothing in these bushes, nothing here. There's the commandos para, but you can spot through a certain amount of forest, right? So you might spot just barely if something crosses here. But it also, of course, reduces your maximum spotting range a bit. So if something crosses here, he might not even notice it. So this is quite a gamble once again. He doesn't have... I mean, now he has 2 more pentagrams, so now he's quite safe. Of course, you can always reroute, but it's more about, seeing it preemptively, seeing it happen that something is coming in versus suddenly fighting versus it. Because you didn't see it coming. Cassiope flying around, that was the one that dealt with the BTR-90 presumably. All that Space and Screw Squad on here also got dealt with. So Krot now has full control over this as well. Which means that all this part is also kind of unsafe. Not having control over this, of course, means... Yeah, look at how much ground now is unsafe for Boulanger. And this not having control over this is a lot more scary than not having control over this. This is virtually useless. This is only really controlled for like base, spongy stuff. This, not so much. If you have something in here, you have line of sight over this area, you can see all the reinforcements, etc. Afghansky did deal with the Cassiope though. No issue. They crashed. And Krot seemingly content with just keeping the stalemate for now. Or is he's moving up those Panzergrins 90. Got another Commandos Sparta squad, presumably trying to get into this town. Always good to have. Also good to have like an ATGM squad in here. Could get some snipes on vehicles in this end here. A52 is gonna be out of fuel soon. Not very efficient. 100,000 liters for 50 kilometers. What does the Tiger have? 1,000 liter, 800 kilometers. There we go. Modest sorry, just for probing. But the BU still sitting here doing very little. And Leclerc back in its old position, just stopping anything from crossing over this end. Iridium 2 to cap Bravo, get that +1. They're now even on conquest points, and any second now, yep. And Boulanger will tick. On paper, kind of even. In practice, I don't believe so. Even as a Platrack being brought here for those high hundreds and the Milan F3. Milan F3 here being turned off, presumably because it's very easy to just get line of sight and immediately lose it on something, so it doesn't want to waste those shots. Panzergrins being moved up behind, LRM coming in, couple of shots. Stuns and panics those BTRTs and AKMs, but not much else. Next Sabo, I think he might be out of range for this, he might have to drive a bit back. Compared to the Eurogun, the LRM actually has quite a high minimum range. So on petty field, as well as sometimes on mud fight, or held in a very small place, even more so, you really have to drive quite a bit back with your LRM to shoot at the front line. And we can see how far this drove back from the fob. Go these a bit. Once. And yeah, it's clear. Krot really wants to get this first because he can sort of support this with Leclerc, and he can deny vehicles traveling down there as well with it. Something I'd really like to see is maybe trying to sneak up a Commando Sparta up here. Sure, there's no cover, but you know, stuff like this does have very good stealth. So even out in the open, if there's no recon from Boulanger's end, you might not really spot this, at least not immediately. You can just maybe go up there, get a quick spot, see if maybe the CV is in this bush, and immediately go back down again. Eurogun is being bought, after all. Probably a good choice. You only need 3 or 4 shots to really panic or at least stun a large chunk of forces. Those are only Heimatschützen, but slowing them down is still worth it. And there's still the Claire supporting him once again. There is a mortar here. No mortar over there. Having mortar to smoke this off could really be helpful. Then he could drive down here with the T-80s, with those BTRTs. Because up here, sure they can shoot down, but not very well. And as I said, he's trying to move them down there. T-72B also not really supporting and actually sitting on the road. Not sure if that is ideal. Because you can of course spot this from this part here. Jurgen coming in with 4 shots, yep. And just completely panicking and stunning all this stuff. And with a shorter minimum range, it's no issue to fire from the spawn. Was the LRM having to drive all the way back here? Where is it firing? On this blob here, presumably? Or maybe a bit further left, or maybe up there again. Let's see. It's actually up there again. CV sniping? Or does he maybe expect that Boulanger gathered some infantry here and is only removing them down once fighting happens? I don't know. Defensive smoke for the Leclerc, but even then doesn't really have to fear a whole lot. There's only Razvedka down there who can actually spot anything, so at the moment it's actually safe from line of sight, but of course there could always be like a K-52 or something flying around that you might not immediately spot. Tiger is actually here, getting again line of sight onto this open field. Let's see if it spots these BTRTs. Yep. Again, a lot of valuable information just from like and you don't even need exceptional optics for that, right? Very good optics is enough, and even good optics probably already start spotting like this area here. So valuable and such a big weakness on the top spawn. Once again, especially if you're on the back foot and you know you may be low on AA or something and you have to rebuy AA, you see an OSA AKM or Boogeyman driving down there, buy a piece round, bam, snipe it. You know? Your cheese should just melt those Heimatschützen. 14 AP. Heat will deal 1.5 damage. I guess it is 0.5 damage more than differential service, so I guess there's that. Still not sure if it's really worth it. Maybe V90 finished this off. For now, Boulanger did repel this, but Krot didn't invest that much either, or hasn't lost either yet. He has like 4 squads of Hammerschützen and 2 Pentagram swords, a Mitre 1 or something. Oh, that's a good tile. Another weakness, you buy a helicopter, fly it, want it here, fly it down there, Krot snipes it. It's empty to be. It was out in the open here. If it was a bit further back, the pentagrams maybe would not have gotten line of sight on it. Jurgen firing its remaining salvo. It is actually quite on target and that heavily damages those pentagrams. I would still kind of doubt it's worth it. Maybe it was the desperation. Maybe he forgot he was firing and noticed too late that it's firing and then wasted way too many shots. I don't know. He did kill 1 pentagram's 90 squad, but not really worth it, honestly. This one's also gonna die here. There we go. I mean, if Boulanger can keep this up, he's gonna win. The question is, can he keep this up? All Krot needs is really, this part here to counter cap or something. Block off this road, make sure this is safe, and he can place the CV in here. It is quite a spicy position for the CV, but in theory, it's possible. More VDB 90. There's still the BU sitting here. I think it would be better if the... I know I'm saying the word I think a lot, but I believe it's probably better, and of course, as a caster, having the all-knowing eyes, or whatever it's called, it's easier to say. But the BU going over this side is probably the right call, especially given that Leclerc currently is here, and not like pushing up there. It's probably the right call. Maybe just if you're really worried, buy like 2 VDV 90 squad or something. They're probably going to be better for holding even than just a single BU, so I really think the BU should move over here. Maybe see if he can make something happen from this plateau. It would require a lot of micro, a lot of smoke to not get side shot, and a lot of awareness, etc. But having a BU up here, scooting in and out, could like shoot at the 2A1 here, or keep the Leclerc and check something like this, while all those grenade launchers, etc. can work on this stuff. But the BU just sitting here does obviously nothing. Of course, he wants to defend his 2-pointer, doesn't just want it to leave to just a single motor strike. But let's not forget, he has a Razzmann to like spot at least a bit earlier than otherwise if there's something coming up here. And in all honesty, I think 2 EDV squads probably do a better job at defending this. There's some smoke now, protecting those T80s, like I said, from the Leclerc. But those Pentagrams 90 are gonna be quite a handful. And without any other support, those T80s will just get murdered. Just like those VDB, especially if they're out in the open. There's the 2A1s. Ooh, nasty angle on the damaged T80. And 2 2A1s are a bit too much to deal with just a single T80 and a VDB 90. Bab T20 is coming in Leech 90, and this is now in Krot's control for the moment. But there's quite a lot for Boulanger to deal with. Leech 90 nearly got a shot off here. Amazing position for Leech 90 to be in. More VDB. Ikla now engaging. Definitely should have turned that AK-74 off. T80 missing that VAP. It does only have 40% base accuracy. Oh, that again, that range on a Krot sniping the K-52. Really, really annoying, of course. And now there's Leech 90 moving in. There's not gonna be much to stop them. There's BTRTs and BMPTs, but now they're gonna be busy dealing with this, and now they're sneaking up here. Gonna snipe this crash shot, presumably. There we go, panicked, so it took way longer to aim. Leech 90, despite being stunned, still get that shot off on the BTRT, getting it down to 2 HP. But with those 2 2A1s and no VDV inside, T80 reversing, they're gonna be dead. More T80s, another BMPT, and more strike coming in. But when there's no smoke, or if there's no smoke, Leclerc will just probably kill the BMPT because that's coming down first. Oh no, it's weaving up to the side. There's Wreck here coming down, Jurgen aiming again, it is reloaded. What about the LRM? Reloaded, but not shooting, not aiming. There's Vedka coming up just to test the ground. But yeah, now the whole lower ground is in Boulanger's control. Sorry, Krot's control, except for those congressmen, of course. And just about, we're just spotted, and then he turns the weapons off, and yep, not at that. B-72 getting put on the edge here. I guess just trying to see can he make anything happen with this, and maybe spot something with the Razzmann to deal with it. Misses the MXN, frustrating. Uragan coming in once again. It was like nearly full salvo, maybe like 10 shots, something like this. You could count if you want to, I suppose. Flanks secured. Looking very rough for Boulanger. And there's a Fifu. I completely missed that. 2 tier 1s. Still the same ones from earlier. Those infantry really would like to get resupplied, I think. Oh, and there's nothing to deny the Tiger as well. Some scratch shots here, but that's about it. T80 dead. There's a 4-sec of T80s. Could potentially do a lot of damage. But I believe... I just spotted it yet. That's the Tiger that was here. So the Tiger was still there. There it is. Yep, now it's spotted. 4 T80s. But yep, and immediately buys another Leclerc. You know, getting such easy line of sight onto all this plateau is so strong. T20s. If they weren't on attack move, maybe they could have continued driving there and then side shot the T-72B. Hot 2 barely misses the scratches. He trying to get up here. Oh, the Web! Oh, they got the weapons jammed! Oh, how unlucky. And kill the CV. That's really frustrating. You hate to see it. You hate to see it. In all fairness, probably doesn't really change the outcome, but it's still frustrating. It's, you know, it's kicking you when you're already down, you know. And there's the last effort push, 40 80s, T-70 to BU. It's better screw more strikey. More strikey. BRDM2 being bought. I don't think he expects to hold this, but then again, he has to, right? And it's really hard to, on this map also to do some kind of surprise spawn push or something, because the front line compared to other 1v1 maps is relatively narrow, so it's very easy to just stop something like that in the tracks. And of course it's very easy to spot, given that Boulanger has a plateau spawn once again. All this, now the infantry is getting caught up in the open. Caught out in the open, sorry, while the tanks are behind. One's trying to push up here. He seems to be now engaging with Leclerc. Nope, doesn't have line of sight. One T80s. Ah, they did engage. BU missed though. One T80 down to the million of 3s. BU took a shot from the Milan 3 down to 2 HP. And another shot from the Leclerc. BU still alive. Still alive. Probably like half HP or something. Was like at 1.5 HP. Took a shot and was on 0.5 HP, something like that, presumably. So that's why it looked like, even though it was 1 HP, it's still on 1 HP. It's actually not. It did take damage. But once you're below 1 HP, the game just rounds up to 1 HP when displaying it. Would be weird otherwise if it displayed it as 0 HP, right? And Leclerc barely took any damage. Oh, the fob is empty. It's not quite close to the end of the game, but still. Well, of course, you don't like it to be empty. It at least means you got some value out of it. It's always nice to see. Or nice as a player, of course. Not for Boulanger. He would have preferred if he managed to snipe the fob himself, I presume. But then again, I don't think the alarm was quite the game changer in this case. 2 Kasifis coming in. But yeah, I think it's pretty obvious how this is going to end. So, even though I don't like the opener that Krot did, personally. It worked out basically perfectly for him. Leaving the flank open and just having Boulanger sit there like a duck, again, it worked perfectly. Yeah, there's not much else to say. Boulanger never really lost any high value targets. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think we saw a single plane in this game. No, false. We saw the single MiG-21 bis at the start. But that's it. Still interesting to see, because both players, at least from when I have played against them, do like to be quite air heavy. So it's interesting to see neither player buying a whole lot of planes. And with a whole lot of planes, I mean Krot buying another single one and Boulanger only one. In any case, I think the gameplay this speaks for itself, especially after the opener that really went in Krot's favor, and then Krot snapping the fob. It was a massive uphill battle for Boulanger, especially on the map on the side as well that I would consider worse. Yeah, tough to beat this. In any case, that's my phone, but this time I'm not getting called. It was just an alarm. In any case, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll hopefully see you next time for the third match in this best of 3, which will determine who goes into the finals, which you may already know, but who cares. Until then, see ya!